Ladies and gentlemen, and ladies, in today's video I will be doing a solo video for RSL episode 8 because I'm going to be creating a March Madness bracket. I am extremely tired. Let's get into it. I've got Duke beating Siena in the round of 64. I got TCU upsetting Ohio State. Very close game, but unfortunately they will come out in the end, in my opinion. I got St. John's beating Northern Iowa. I got Kansas beating California Baptist. I got USF beating the Living Breaks off of Louisville in an upset. I've got Michigan State beating North Dakota State. I've got UCF having a better resume than UCLA and unfortunately coming out in with a victory. I've got UConn beating Furman. I've got Arizona beating Long Island. I've got Villanova beating Utah State. I understand it's also going to be a very close game. It could go either way here, but I see Villanova coming out in the end. I got Wisconsin beating High Point. I understand the High Point is getting some praise. However, I see Wisconsin beating them. I've got Arkansas beating Hawaii. I've got BYU beating Texas. I've got Gonzaga beating Kansas State. Very shaky, but I see them coming out in the end. I got Missouri upsetting Miami. I've got Purdue beating Queens. I've got, in the South, Florida beating Prairie View A&M/Lehigh. I've got Clemson beating Iowa. I've got Vanderbilt beating McNeese. I've got Nebraska beating Troy. This will be Nebraska's technically their first ever tournament win. If they do it, of course. This could also be Troy's, because neither one of them actually won an NCAA tournament game. I've got North Carolina beating up a very, very good VCU team, even though they've got a very injured team. I've got Illinois beating Penn. I've got Texas A&M beating St. Mary's. I've got Houston beating Idaho. Back up to the Midwest, I've got Michigan beating Howard. I got St. Louis upsetting Georgia. I got Akron beating Texas Tech, as they are a more competitive team than Texas Tech, and I just see them coming out with a victory in the end. Go Maction. I got Alabama beating Hofstra. I got Miami OH/SMU beating Tennessee. Tennessee has been a more risky team and a more first half of the season team, and I just don't see them winning against Miami or SMU. I've got Virginia playing a trap game against Wright State. I guarantee it. Virginia's going to come out in the end. I have Santa Clara beating Kentucky. I have Iowa State beating Tennessee State. For the round of 32, I got Duke beating TCU. I got Kansas beating St. John's in a very tight matched game. I've got Michigan State beating South Florida. I've got UConn beating UCF. Back up to the West, I have Arizona beating Villanova. Arkansas winning against Wisconsin. Very close game again. I've got BYU beating Gonzaga, and I've got Purdue beating Missouri. For the South, I've got Florida winning against Clemson. I've got Vanderbilt beating Nebraska. I've got Illinois beating North Carolina. I've got Houston beating Texas A&M. Back up to the Midwest, I've got Michigan beating St. Louis. I've got Akron actually upsetting Alabama. I see it going Akron's way. I'd say it'd be pretty exciting to see it. It could be the Silhouette. It's going to be a run. I got them just being the team everybody's talking about this tournament. They're going to be the St. Peter's. They're going to be the Oakland. They're going to be whatever team you normally would see them as. I got Virginia beating Miami OH/SMU. Unfortunately, their run will come to an end. I've got Iowa State taking down Santa Clara for the Sweet 16. I've got Duke beating Kansas. Michigan State upsetting UConn. For the West, I've got Arizona beating Arkansas, and I've got BYU beating Purdue. For the South, I've got Florida beating Vanderbilt. I've got Illinois upsetting Houston. Back up here, I've got Michigan beating Akron, and I've got Virginia upsetting Iowa State. And for the Elite Eight, I've got Duke winning against Michigan State. I've got Arizona winning against BYU. And then I've got Florida beating Illinois and Virginia upsetting Michigan. And for the Final Four, I've got Duke winning against Florida, and I've got Arizona winning against Virginia. Two very competitive teams and very complete teams, but I've got Arizona winning in the end with a total score of 143 points. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you did enjoy this very short video, and I will see you guys again very, very soon for another podcast episode.